Every YouTuber has blind spots, and every YouTube video has specific triggers that are killing the video. So today, we're gonna go through every single blind spot and fix them so that your videos can get the most views possible. Most YouTube videos have one of these 6 issues in them. Either the video is failing because there's a title issue, there's a thumbnail issue, there is an idea issue, there's a content issue, an intro issue, or a specific retention mechanism issue that's causing people to not want to watch. So we're going to dive into each one and go through and explain what the issue is and how you can fix it. So the first is a title issue. So typically this comes with not creating enough curiosity in the title. So we don't have enough emotion, or not making a title interesting enough that forces people to click. Let's look at specific examples so you can really get a gauge for what works. So we have this iconic video, the simplest math problem no one can solve. So that title right there creates the curiosity. It is creating contrast between a simple math problem and no expert can solve. It makes you almost ask a question of like, how is that possible? And boom, you're hooked, you're curious, and now you want to click. But the bigger factor is it has that element of like, it forces you to click. Like you kind of need to click because you really want that answer. It creates a scenario in your mind that you really want the answer to, and so it forces that click, right? Another one, this mechanism shrinks when pulled. So such a good title. It's the same concept. You have that contrast of like, when you pull something, normally it gets bigger, but here it's shrinking. It has the opposite, it has that contrast effect when you're doing something. So you're like, how is that possible? And it makes you want to click. So here's another great example. So we have how to speak to cause goosebumps. Such a good title. So now you're going into a very specific scenario and a specific result. So it's like, how can you improve something to create this sort of result in someone, right? So how to get these goosebumps when you're speaking. And another one that is just so strong is how to edit so good your viewers get addicted to your videos. See, it's the same sort of result aspect of how to do something so that viewers or people receive a specific reward, right? Receive a specific feeling, a specific emotion. You're selling an emotion, right? So this, how to edit so good, if your viewers get addicted to your content. Any person trying to become a YouTuber sees that video and is like, holy shit, I want viewers to be addicted and watch every single video one after the other. And it kind of forces you to be like, what does he know that I don't, that's making viewers addicted, and it makes you want to click? So that's the basic of like what makes a really good, emotionally intriguing title. Now let's go into how to actually write one of these intriguing titles. So I'm going to do this with an example of a title in 3 stages, right? So we have the basic idea, which is like how to save time with AI. So you play into the demand of like people who want to understand how to use AI, or you play into just AI narrative that's really trending right now, right? So you have basic ideas like how to save time in your workflow and your process with AI. Right? So then we now go and we take it a step further. We're like, okay, let's target some sort of desire or pain point, right? So we have how to do 8 hours of work in 30 minutes with AI. So like, what are pain points? So the first thing you want to break down is like, what is the base premise of your video, right? So you have that basic idea. And then you want to be like, okay, what are some results that you want people to either get, or emotions you want people to feel when they complete or they beat that challenge, or they get that, or they learn that thing, right? So it's like, if someone's trying to save time with AI, the sort of thing they want to solve is getting a lot of work done in a very short amount of time, or feeling like, the emotion of like, I have finished all this super quickly and I have time to do other things, or I have time. Oh, we could play into like time of hobbies, right? So it's like how to do your work so quickly that you still have time at the end of the day to like do some hobbies, right? Or, how to work on multiple things at the same time, right? So you see how we're kind of brainstorming, like what are some like interesting narratives, some emotions we can play into, or some sort of like pain point of like person struggling with problem. How can we target that, right? So then we go to the next stage, which is like this sort of can't skip. So now you have these sort of desire, pain point, emotion, but it's like, okay, how do we add that almost like I cannot skip this video? Like you see this in your feed and you cannot skip this. It's like, holy fuck, I need to click that, right? So this one would be like, if you don't learn this, AI will replace you. See? So now we have this sort of like, ooh, it's like you see that and you're like, so now for us, the thumbnail specifically would play into the like, if you don't learn this, right? So you have the thumbnail play into specifically what the this is. But if that targets you see that and you're like, oh, like, you don't want to get replaced by AI. Maybe you work like a white collar job. You don't want to get replaced by AI. You see that video, you now have to click to get that answer. So that's specifically like how to kind of engineer a really clickable title. So I think a big thing too is using power words in titles, right? So another aspect is like, so a power word is basically like a word that can create curiosity or shock, right? Typically these power words are words that aren't used that often So you want to look for specific formats that are gonna kind of get your point across, but aren't overly complicated, right? So let's say, for example, in the YouTube space, you have this keyword that's used a lot, which is killer video or killer thumbnail. You have that killer, that specific adjective, right? Killer. And so it's like, how can we find another word to replace killer that gets the sort of premise across that's like interesting? And you see that and you're like, ooh, that looks interesting, right? So that plays into the next aspect is like, is your title unique? So it's like when you look at the title and you see that, is it the exact same as everyone else who's made a video on that topic? Or is there some sort of unique aspect to the titling, the words in that title that make it interesting, right? So there's some stuff you want to keep in. And an easy way to do that is to just prompt ChatGPT. So you just throw your title into ChatGPT, explain like what a power word is, and just ask it to like blurt out 100 different variations, swapping out different words, right? And then you can really be like, ooh, what are some interesting words that stick out that are interesting, right? That'll pull attention, right? Because people haven't seen that or haven't seen that specific word in a title. Yeah, and then finally with titles, and another massive issue I see, people run away from specifics, right? So they think, oh, to get views, you need to target the broadest thing possible. So you do like world's largest whatever, right? World's largest mattress. And when you go into like the broad, you just get to a point where it's so broad that you lose the curiosity aspect, right? So you want to actually play into the specifics. Here's an example, right? So I flipped 100 rocks. Here's what I found. So you have a specific action there, but overall it's a very broad title. It's like, I did a thing, I found this, right? And then look at this. I flipped 100 rocks in a rainforest. Here's what I found. You see how this video got 3 million more views and it was more specific. The specifics of that title caused it to be more interesting and got more clicks. So definitely don't be over optimizing your titles to the point where they're so broad they lose that curiosity. Now the next issue to solve is thumbnail issues. So the main problem people struggle with thumbnails is creating something that grabs attention and connects the topic to the video, right? So to kind of really go in depth on that, you have, the thumbnail obviously needs to grab attention. When you're scrolling through the home feed, you're going to see tons of different options. You want your thumbnail to stand out from everything else, right? On top of that, you want the thumbnail to kind of connect to the core premise of the idea of the video so that when they click on that video, they're not getting misled in the first 30 seconds and they don't have that, and you don't get that huge drop off, right? So those are the two tasks of the thumbnail. So for most people, I would suggest this. I wouldn't say try and like reverse engineer and like reinvent the wheel with some brand new idea. I would look for specific thumbnails that have already worked really well in outside your space and bring it into your space. So I had this video here about thumbnail psychology, and I found this thumbnail here that was a 40x outlier for this small channel. And I was like, ooh, that's a really interesting visual. I can do some sort of symbolism for thumbnail psychology where like you're using a gun to force people to click. Like, you click on this video right now, right? And that worked really well. This video became like a massive outlier on my channel, right? And so I removed the hard part of trying to just brainstorm from scratch a brand new idea by just finding something outside my space and bringing it into my space. So the reason you don't want to do this inside your own niche is because then you're just basically ripping someone else's thumbnail from your space, right? So now you're competing against that person, and your idea doesn't stand out much from that person's. And also on top of that, everyone in your space is also ripping off everyone else in your space, so you don't stand out at all. So this is an easy way to find ideas that have worked before. They're proven to get clicks. Like when you see that thumbnail has gotten like 1 million clicks or 100,000 clicks. Like 100,000 people have seen that and clicked before. So you know like this will work if you found the right way to adjust it to your video, right? So that is the easiest way to solve this thumbnail issue, right? So you use thumbnails that have already worked well before. They already proven to grab attention, right? And then you just show things in a different light. So you just kind of tweak it so that it works with your video. Now, the next major issue is an idea issue, right? So you have ideas that aren't working. So the idea isn't good enough, and so the video is not getting views. So the main way to solve this is to focus on stuff that interests people. And that sounds very basic, right? But the issue is a good idea is very subjective, right? So it all depends on what audience you're showing that idea to. Like a specific idea, like, I made a transparent katana, right? It's like that's only going to work if you show it to a specific audience. It's not going to work if you show it to a bunch of like 12-year-old kids in the Roblox space, right? So you need to be very careful. So the first thing is playing into ideas that work well in your audience, really understanding your audience and understanding what interests them, right? And the second thing is creating an idea that has the potential to go viral. So a lot of people, they nerf themselves by doing stuff that's way too niche. It only targets a very small audience. And the way to solve this is by targeting bigger audiences, right? So one of the biggest limiting factors to an idea, getting to a good idea, is the niche you're in, right? If you're making videos in like the lawn mowing niche, obviously that's not going to get as many views as if you're making like, you know, a Mr. Beast title, you know, survive 100 days in a prison, right? Which one's going to get more views? So the niche you're in is really important. But on top of that, being able to target multiple niches or expand your idea so it targets different types of people works really well. So right here we have audience types. So I like to categorize it into 3 different types, right? So you have fans, the casuals, and the broad viewers. So if we take a niche like cooking, for example, right? Fans in cooking are going to be the people that, you know, cook every day. They know how to cut a knife. They know how to, like, their knife cutting skills are perfect. They know all the ingredients. They go shopping at specific places for specific ingredients, right? They're very, very fans, or the cult-like fans of that specific niche, right? And then you have the casuals that are more like, I would watch a video if it's in the niche, but I'm not obsessed with it, right? And then you have broad, which is like, I do this action, but I don't care about it at all, right? So everyone eats. So hypothetically, everyone can watch a video about food, right? But the broad people, they don't care. They're not passionate about that topic. So you need to convince them with the idea to click on that video. So those are the 3. And the best ideas come when you mix all 3 of these together. So you come up with an idea that'll target hardcore fans, target casual people, and target broad people that, you know, have some relatability to the topic, but aren't, you know, obsessed with the specific niche. So an easy way to do this is to find proven viral ideas. So you look in your niche, you can put in keywords in YouTube search and then filter by most viewed, right? And just be like, okay, look for outliers or videos that have gotten 10, 20, 30 million views and look there. Like, these videos have hit massive audiences of people. So you take those ideas and like, how can we innovate on that or twist on it? You know, how can we take that core idea that has 20 million views and then, you know, twist maybe the topic angle slightly or twist the location, you know, add some sort of aspect to the video that makes it more novel so that when you remake the video, it's fresh and it's not just a straight rip that everyone's already seen before. And so the final aspect of really solving your idea problems is this line. It's getting more views is not about posting better ideas. It's about removing shitty ideas, right? So if you want to get like 10 million views a video on average, it's not about coming up with the best idea possible. It's about being able to filter down the bad ideas that are hurting your views, right? So YouTube is obviously a momentum game. So as you get more views, those views stack, right? So I'd say like Mr. Beast, for example, I think one of the main reasons why he's gotten so good is he's able to hold interest of people over years, right? So like a lot of people have been watching Mr. Beast for now almost like maybe like 8, 7, 6 years, right? They're watching every video one after the other because he's able to hold their interest and stack that. So for us, it's about not posting shitty ideas that make people be like, oh, I'm not a fan of this channel, or oh, I'm not a fan, or this guy's kind of inconsistent. I'm not sure. I don't click on every video, right? So you have this sort of viewership of like, they watch every single video because every single video is a banger and it stacks like that. So that's the goal. It's like being able to filter ideas down. So I have this saying when I work with people, it's like the sort of core aspect of being like a good consultant, a good strategist, right? Or just providing good value is not specifically coming up with ideas. I think anyone can come up with 100 ideas, especially now where you can just like, you know, there's a lot of strategies that are out there, you know, like looking at and other niches and whatnot, right? So it's very easy to like come up with a list of 100 ideas that you just find a video in like another niche that got 20 million views and you try and convert it to your niche, right? But the core skill gap, the core issue that a lot of people run to is you know, when you convert an idea from another niche to your niche, a lot of people don't make sure that idea actually works. The viral components of that video work in your niche. But secondly, people don't filter the idea properly. It's not specifically about coming up with a ton of ideas. It's being able to filter through dozens of ideas to find the perfect idea that would get millions and millions of views, right? So let's go through a specific example of this with the 3 different audiences in mind, right? So we have the hardcore fans, you know, of the niche. So let's go, you know, the book niche. We're gonna do why specific book storyline sucks. So let's I'm not a book fan, so like we'll find like imagine like a random very niche book, and you're like, why this book's storyline sucks. You know, only 1,000 people are gonna click on that video, right? So it's gonna be limited to the viewership or the sort of viewership connected to how known that book is, right? Now, the second title or topic that would target more of a casual audience is how the Harry Potter series fixed their storyline or something. So now we've kind of elevated from an unknown book to a series that is massive, that can pull millions and millions of people, right? But it's still kind of niched into just the storytelling genre, right? So the third way to really elevate this is like, we're going to target the broad viewers, the people who have read books before, but they don't care about books, about reading, right? So you need to find a way to appeal to them. So it's like, why people don't read books anymore, I haven't read a book in 12 months. I haven't read a book in 3 years. Click, right? You see how now we can appeal to the hardcore viewers that are like, oh, I read books, or like, well, maybe I can convince my friend. They run into a problem where their friend or whatever doesn't read books. Maybe there's a good argument in there, right? It targets the casuals and it targets the broad viewers. So that's how you kind of filter down. You just need to think of like, okay, take the base idea that targets hardcore fans in your niche, then bring it to a casual level where it targets people who aren't as obsessed, but are kind of like, mingled in have kind of like dipped their foot inside your niche, and then bring it to the spot where like people who have done this specific thing in your niche, but aren't obsessed or interested in it. How can you appeal to those people? And that's how you come up with an idea that's going to hit millions and millions of views. Now, the next issue is the intro issue. And the fix to this is finding a way to take that retention chart and improve your videos. Most viewership gets lost in the first 30 seconds of the video, right? So being able to fix the intro and make a really good intro that connects to the packaging of the video and the expectations of the video solves that and already just improves. If you can improve your intro like 30%, if you can improve that by 10% at the beginning, so the drop is only like 30% instead of 40% in the first 30 seconds, right? At that very end, like the end of the video, the retention there is going to go up by another 10% too, unless you make massive mistakes in the video, right? But if it's just an average video, if you can just improve your intro by 10%, you're going to increase the later parts of your video's retention by 10% too. So the intro is crucial. And the way to fix this is by making the intro a bridge between the packaging and the topic, right? A lot of people don't break down why people are clicking. So first, you need to really reverse engineer why are people clicking on the video, and then write an intro that plays into setting expectations and playing into, if we take this idea of why people don't read books anymore, right? With the intro, we need to confirm that idea. So it's like, maybe it's a statistic about, blah, 90% of people don't read books anymore, or something like that, or very specific storyline, but you want it to correlate to your thumbnail and title and connect it like a bridge, right? You could say the intro has two jobs. It's to replicate the emotion of the packaging, and then it's to make the viewers ask a question so that they want to stick around to find the answer, right? So how do you write a good intro? Well, I think one aspect is really knowing the pain point of your like the premise of your video. Like, I like for every video to have a log line of like, this is the title of the video, but what's like the log line? What's the specific one sentence line that explains what this video is about and why you're making it, right? And so understanding your topic, what you're specifically making, what you're targeting and why, right? Will help you create an intro that appeals to the reason you're getting people to click in the first place, right? So with this, my solution to make a really good intro is I just do a volume strategy. So I sit there and I write out 5 to 10 different intros. And then I go through and mess with them, I tweak them, and I pick my 3 favorites. And then when I record the video, I record 3 different intros. Not one, I record 3 intros. And then in post-production, when we have the edit done, and whether you're working with an editor or yourself, when you have like all the footage figured out and you're reviewing the footage and quality controlling, then you can be like, okay, which intro makes the most sense? Like, you have the thumbnail and title pulled up on the left, and you have the video playing on the right, the intro playing on the right? It's like, which intro of the 3 makes the most sense with this thumbnail and title that I have? And then you pick that and you tweak it. And it's a game of really tweaking and optimizing. But that volume strategy really helps solve like 80% of the issues when it comes to making an intro. So the next is content issue. And the number one thing I've noticed with most people's content is that they struggle with clarity. There is no clear structure to the video. A lot of people think that a good video needs to be super in-depth and have tons of different analogies and options and research and go into tons of different directions so you can get a full picture on something, right? But the best videos, making the best video that can hit millions and millions of views is not about adding as much stuff into it as possible. It's about removing as much as possible so that it's super simple to understand, to watch, and that simplicity allows that video to appeal to millions and millions of people. So with videos, when making content, I would keep in mind, what is the specific thing I'm trying to get across in this video, or the specific thing I'm trying to do with this video? So with your content, I would ask, like, what is the simple goal that this video is trying to get across? And then have a deadly focus on that goal. So go through your video and make sure that all aspects of your video at all times target that specific goal. If there's any fluff or any side tangents or any jokes that don't really make sense or don't work well in that specific place, just remove them. Now, another aspect too that's really going to help is focusing on value, right? So obviously value is going to be different depending on whether you're in the entertainment space or in the educational space, right? But I would watch your video and be like, are every 30 seconds, is there some sort of value? Whether in the education space, it's like, am I giving a nugget that's really interesting that people can be like, oh, that's really good, and then they can use it immediately, right? An actionable nugget, right? in the entertainment space, it's like, is there some sort of progression or visual action or specific scenario that's really interesting, right? Then every 30 seconds or every minute, we have this sort of like new visual aspect or this new value being added, whether it's like progression or a new character being introduced, or there's a plot twist, or all of a sudden you have to change environments. You know, these small tweaks with challenge videos, right? So, or you introduce like a character that's looking for you, or like, you know, hide and whatever, right? Just making sure that you have value laid out throughout the video, so that people are getting something out of the video regardless of what they're watching. Now, the final aspect that I think really hurts most channels is the retention mechanism. Now, a retention mechanism is basically what gets people to watch the video, right? So we've all seen this chart. So it's like, you know, typical retention chart, you know. I think, is this, okay, so this starts a bit higher. You can see it says 120%, right? But you have that big drop. So it goes from like about like 100, 110% to whatever. We'll say average video, 100%, it drops to like 60%, right? So you lose 40% in the first 30 seconds. And then you have this sort of ski slope, I call it, right? So it's like, imagine you're skiing, it's just always going down. You're just skiing down the slope this entire time, right? So this is what the average video retention looks like. You have the big dip at the beginning, 30%, and then you have a slow, gradual ski slope until the end, right? And this is what kills videos. This is what kills the viewership of videos. Now, the way to fix this is just to have a strong retention mechanism. You want to have a strong reason to be watching the video in the first place, and then a strong reason to stay till the end, right? So I like to put it like this, where you have story loops, right? So you have the ideal structure of a video. You have the intro, you have the content, and you have the payoff, right? And so the retention mechanism is this overarching loop in the video of what gets people to watch. So if we go back to this video up here about flipping rocks, right? The overarching retention mechanism is that concept of like, I flip a rock, what do I find, right? Every time I'm going to be flipping 100 of these, there's like this sort of like, what do I find when I flip that rock? You know, there can be anything under there. And so you have that sort of curiosity of like, what am I going to find? And you have the mechanism of like, at the end, what is the last thing you found? Like maybe you sum up like everything you found throughout the video, right? So you have that mechanism of people want to see, what do you find, right? And then in the content, you have these sort of smaller loops. You have these smaller narratives. You have these sort of smaller payoffs, because a lot of times it can take too long to get to the overarching like payoff of the video at the end of the video. So you have these smaller payoffs that work, right? So like in a Mr. Beast video, the smaller loops would be something like introducing some sort of like optional reward. It's like, you could go for this, and if you win, you get an extra $100,000, right? So these smaller loops where you're still watching for the overarching loop of like, will they beat, or will they survive, or will they make it all 100 days, right? But you also have these smaller loops of like these little nuggets of, like we said, value that keep people watching and fulfill people while they're waiting for the overarching story to develop, to finish, right? And yeah, that's all the blind spots in a video. If you need feedback on your blind spots and you don't know what's wrong with your videos, and you're a channel with over 100K subs, posting at least one video a week, hit me up on Twitter and let's chat. Peace.